Oh, the Philippines, yeah. It's interesting. I'll see it. You will have to anyway. Good morning. Am I on? Not yet? Are we there? Unmute me. Or turn it up. Oh yeah, I turned it off. Good morning. Is that on? Is that okay? Yeah, there we go. Sorry, we're our PA has gone off to be fixed. One of the buttons had stopped working properly. I think it was before we managed to get the desk cover on, and little fingers have been keep going on the button, and so it eventually didn't want to work. So we've got a top of the range PA for the next maybe week or two from the 70s, instead of the top of the range one from now. So we're just learning to operate it and do different stuff with it. It's all going to be good. It's all fun. Okay. So we start a new series this morning. Welcome to church. We start a new series this morning, Anxious for Nothing. But first, tomorrow is the 11th of the 11th. Okay. And at church today, I want to do 2 minutes silence in remembrance of people that gave their lives for us in wars. Okay, leave it up, because it just sounds, I can just hear my own voice here. And I want us to stand for 2 minutes, just as we honour the dead that have fallen for our freedoms that we have today. Okay, so we're just going to put something on. If you can just get the video up, ready to go. Don't press it yet. Just pause it and have the sound up. You need the sound up, Modris. There you go. Don't pause it. Just put the X up. Just put the, there you go. It's ready. So if we could just stand, and I just want us to spend two minutes of our time. You know, these people gave their lives, whether they was 18, 17, some were much younger, and they gave their lives for our freedom. So I just thought it would be right, because right across the world, this wasn't a one country versus one country, this was a fight for freedom. And so I just want us to honour those who fought and who gave their lives. So let's just play it for me, please, now. It's just 2 minutes of our time. Awesome, you know. Can we give a clap for these people? Okay, take your seats. Take your seats. Okay, can you put up the next? Awesome. So we start a new series today. Anxious for nothing. Okay. It's 4 weeks. A 4-week series centred around Philippians 4 verses 4 to 7. Okay. Today, week 1 is titled When You've Had Enough. Week 2 is titled Praying Through the Pain. Week 3 is the perspective of praise. And week 4 is when you just can't decide. So what is being anxious or suffering from anxiety? People who are feeling heavy, waylaid, feeling low, anxiety. This is some of the words from a dictionary. Feeling of worry, nervousness or unease about something with an uncertain outcome. Similar words are worry, concern, apprehension, uneasiness, unease, fearfulness, fear, disquiet. There's a couple I don't even know what they are, so I'm not going to say them. Fretfulness, agitation, angst, nervousness, nerves, edginess, tension, tenseness, stress, misgiving, trepidation, foreboding, suspense, butterflies. You know, butterflies in the stomach. Oh, that's horrible, that. The willies, one of them's called. The heebie-jeebies. The jitters. The shakes, the jumps, the yips. I've heard that one. Collywobbles. Jitteriness, jim jams, twitchiness. I've heard this one made me laugh. The screaming abdabs. I've never heard of this one. Joe Blake's. Or worryment. Okay? Different words for anxiety or anxiousness. We all go through things. We all get anxious about something. Our families, our futures. What will it look like? Who will I marry? Will I get married? If I marry someone, will we have kids? What will they be like? What will they be like when I was younger? What job will I have? Are my exams going well? Is this going right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I hanging out with the right people? We have decisions to make. What about our health? Are we anxious over that? Our children, their futures. Who will they marry? Will they treat them right? Will they be good to them? Will they have a good job? What about their education? What about their safety? Do I let them ride to school on their own on their bike? Do I let them walk alone to school? Is it safe for them? Is school safe for them? See, we can have many things to go. I'm hoping I've just made you anxious over something. But we can have many things that we can be anxious over. Will they be all right? What about how busy my life is? Because we can get anxious over that. When will I get some free time? When will I have some time off? Am I too busy? When can I do this? When can I have a holiday? Listen, as Christians, you need to know something. It doesn't make you unholy if you have been anxious or are anxious or have had anxiety in your life. Listen, if that's you, if you've had anxiousness, if you've been anxious or have had anxieties, too many A's and that in it, or are suffering from anxiety right now, you're not alone. Paul wrote these verses that we'll read in a minute, out of his anxiety, out of his anxiousness. Okay? Jesus was so anxious in the garden that he sweated blood. He was under that much stress that he sweated. Has anyone ever sweated blood? No. I don't know why I put my hand up. I was hoping people would put their hand up. That would be amazing. Okay. But you're not alone. Okay? You're not alone. Philippians 4 verses 4 to 7 says this. That's it. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer, supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, regard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Before we get into the subject today, the thought behind this series is not that all of a sudden your anxiety will be gone. It isn't that all of a sudden everything that you're anxious about will be gone. It may do. This is about giving keys to people to help through, okay, different weeks. What it does mean is that you can find peace in those moments of anxiousness. In that anxiety, you can find peace. We say, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. Are you with me? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Let's stand and pray. Let's just stand up. We're going to pray. Can we just make sure this stays up, Mod? Modris, make sure this just stays up. Not this, the sound. Awesome. Okay, let's pray. Just close your eyes, because I want you to focus on what's being said and not on whether you've left the oven on, where are your keys, and the kids are all right next door. Am I doing the right thing? I want you to just take your focus off that a minute and listen as we pray. And join me as I pray. Lord, I just pray for this series right now, right at the beginning on the first week. Lord, that it opens people's eyes, that it opens people's hearts to have an understanding of who they are, of who you are, and actually, Lord, we can have a different perspective on things. And Lord, you know, sometimes while we might not always find freedom from something, what we can do is find peace. Peace that is beyond our understanding, beyond our circumstance, and that we can actually walk in that peace and still have a full and awesome life in you. So Lord, I just pray right now, open up our hearts and our minds this morning to hear your word, to hear what is said and not imagine what I'm saying, but to hear every word. Lord, clear our minds so that we can take your word in and take it into our hearts, take it into our minds, so that we have a full understanding. And Lord, we don't just walk away from today of, oh, that was nice, or, oh, I don't get that. But actually, Lord, that it applies into our hearts and our minds every day, so that every day of this week we walk with this knowledge of who we are and who we carry. In your name, Lord, may we glorify you. Amen. Awesome. Take your seats. So, we are normal, natural people. Yes?
Yeah.
But we have a supernatural God. An incredible God who is able to do anything. Yeah? Yeah, just me, Malcolm, and a couple of others. Let me share an experience of mine. I've probably said it before, maybe in prayer meetings and that. We moved here on the 26th of July 2012. We'd been coming over to the church for 18 months before that, involved in the leadership with Roy and Jeff and Malcolm, and doing a journey from Lincoln every Sunday. On the 18th of August in 2012, 7 years ago, we took over as the pastors of this church. Now, I've always been an assertive person. Always been what I know, what I believe, and that's it, that's what we're going to do, and we're going to go for it. And we moved over here. And within 3 weeks, I had an anxiety attack. The thing is, I couldn't bear to be in our building in Station Street at that point because it was just long and thin. I've never suffered with claustrophobia. I used to play rugby and I used to be at the bottom of a ruck and the bottom of a scrum with 15 other people on top of me, and I'd be quite happy under there. In winter you was warm. It's fine. And if it was raining you were dry. So it was okay, everyone could pile on, it didn't bother me. Right? But I couldn't bear to go in the building because I just felt claustrophobic. I just felt that everything was coming on me. But I would be there, and on Sunday mornings I'd be sat on the front row just like, oh my word, oh my word, oh my word. Lord, you need to help me here, you need to help me here, you need to help me. I can't do this. And my mind was racing at 400 miles an hour. My mind normally works at about 200, okay? But my mind was just going off on its own. And I was fearful. Tammy, our kids at the time were in school at Old Leek. So, 7 miles from where we lived. And they went to school, and Tammy could not take the kids to school on her own. I had to go with her because I was fearful that something might happen to them while I wasn't there, that they wouldn't be able to cope with anything, that they would die, that anything could happen and I wouldn't be there. And so every day I had to go with Tammy. And every day I had to go back at 12:30 to pick up Ben from nursery, then come home. And then every day I'd go with Tammy in the afternoon to go and get Grace. And then, oh my goodness, the woman who had given birth to 3 children, I would follow behind her, telling her that bottle's not made right. Because I was worried in case it was too lumpy for either. I was completely freaking out. Completely freaking out. And you know what? Overnight I'd go to bed at 10 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock I'd wake up. And I would pace up and down throughout the house for an hour. Just like a caged animal. You seen an animal in a zoo, in a cage, just pacing? That was me for an hour. Just doing that for an hour. And then I'd go back to sleep for 2 hours. Then I'd get up for an hour and I'd pace up and down. Then I'd go back to sleep for 2 hours. Then I'd get up for an hour and pace up and down throughout the house. And that was anxiety. And at the time I thought, I'm going under a spiritual attack here. It's a spiritual attack. And you know what? It wasn't. It was anxiety. But you know, what happened at that point was the devil went, going to jump all over this. And the voice that started coming to me was, this never happened in Lincoln. You need to go back home. That was the spiritual. What was going on before was anxiety. But the devil used it to try and speak into my life through my anxiety and say, you need to go back to Lincoln. Boston isn't the place for you. Look what's going on. This never happened in Lincoln. And I had to start shutting that voice down and then try and deal with the anxiety. And the main verse that was open in my Bible every day, every morning before I got up, and every night before I'd go to sleep was Philippians 4, verses 4 to 7. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I had different people come and pray for me. I went to different places. I went to a training day as a training minister at the time. And I sat on the end chair near the window. And I was there all day. And I was, oh my goodness. And at moments, I was okay. But in other moments, my mind was just running away with me. I would be on the road over there in the car. The car's going to break down, car ain't going to get there. I'm going to run out of fuel. But I had 3/4 of a tank of fuel and it's only 2 hours drive. Oh, I'm going to run out of fuel, I'm going to do this. This is what's going to happen, I'm going to have a crash. What's going to happen to me? Oh my goodness, oh. Breathe. And we'll get to that a little bit later. Because we're going to look at Elijah today. We are normal people that go through normal things, but we have a supernatural God. And I started to, instead of just pacing up and down overnight, whenever I woke up, I was tired. So whenever I woke up, I would just get my Bible, read my Bible, and pray. Shabba-dabba-ding-da, and everything else, okay? And I'd be praying and praying and praying for the hour. I thought, if I'm up, I'm going to put my time to good use. So I was just praying and praying and praying into the town, and praying into our church, and I hardly prayed for me, but I prayed for everything else. And then when I got up, I'd do the same thing. And before I got out of bed, I'd read all different scripture as well, but the main one being Philippians 4. And then one Saturday, God was just like, we're going to break this. I need you to get up. Because there was some spiritual aspect to it. And I want you to pray around the house, and anoint everywhere, and I went and done that, and was praying. And the next morning it was gone. Just gone. Gone, like that. Gone. And it was a couple of months later, we was moving to the house across the road. And I spoke to the neighbour who used to own the house, and he said, and she said to us, so have you been living in, because it was a ridiculous sized house. The house we were in was big. The house that we had for 6 months in Boston was twice the size, or 3 times the size. And she said, have you been living in just half of the house? And I said, no, we've been using the whole house. But there was one room in the house, the main room where our television was and the sofas were, that I couldn't bear being in. And the kids always used to sit on my lap and we'd watch the cartoons before dinner when they come home from school. And I couldn't bear to do it for those couple of months while this was all going on. And we went, when we was talking, sorry I was jumping ahead, when we was talking to the lady, and she said, oh, you've been using the big room? So I said, yeah, the room that I was fearful of going in. I was fearful whenever we pulled up in the car of going near the house. And She said, that was the guy who owns it, that's his prayer room. I was like, right, yeah, he's a Muslim doctor, that's his prayer room. And I was like, hang on. Okay, I get that. I can see that. But actually, the anxiety and everything else just made it 10 times worse. But it went. And a couple of times after that, when I would wake up in a panic, it's there, them same thoughts. I had to cast it down. But no, this ain't happening. We're not doing this. And it went. And now it doesn't happen. For the last 6 years, it's not been there, and it's been good. So, you know, everyone can go through this. I'm not saying that as everyone can have the same. It's fine. I'm saying that anyone can go through this. Okay? Won't always be the same. It'll be different for everyone else. This series is born out of weakness. I have suffered with anxiousness, with anxiety. My anxiousness of a Sunday morning is, will everyone turn up? My anxiousness in the week is, what was the offering like? Have we got enough to pay the rent? Have we got enough to pay for this? And these verses were the main verses for me. Paul says, be anxious for nothing. But is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. It's possible to be anxious for nothing. Let me just talk about Elijah. Elijah loved God incredibly, but he suffered with anxiety. And God looked after Elijah incredibly. Okay? Absolutely brilliantly. God looked after Elijah. Now, Elijah predicts a drought. He raises a widow's son. He confronts Ahab. God feeds him bread and meat for 3 years. Okay? And for 3 years, Ahab pursues Elijah. Then Elijah confronts Ahab again. And he says, bring all your prophets. We're going to have a showdown. Okay? You're thinking, fearless. This prophet of God is fearless. He's got it all together, or he must have it all together to be able to do that. We move on. He then mocks and slaughters 850 prophets of Baal and Asherah. This man is great. Elijah was a great man. And if you're thinking that, you'd be right. He's a great man. But then, after doing all that, all those incredible things, the king's wife speaks. The king's wife, not even the king. The king's wife speaks. And he's terrified. All that anxiety wells up. Fear rises up in him. Anxiousness rises up in him. Elijah, who had experienced non-stop provision, non-stop protection, been in God's presence all that time, had experienced the power of God, but one really grumpy woman threatens him and he falls apart. Seriously. She threatens him. He just slaughtered 850 prophets of Baal, mocked the entire lot of them, and the woman has a pop at him and he falls apart. 1 Kings 19, 1-3. This is what happens. Ahab told his wife, Jezebel, all that Elijah had done. He'd gone whinging to her. And how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. Then he was afraid. He confronted the king twice. The king had pursued him with all his armies for 3 years, and God had protected him and given him all that he needed. And yet, it must have been the way she said it. And then he was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life and came to Bathsheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. When he said, hear that bit. The next verse, verse 4 says, but he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, it is enough now. O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my father's. Have you ever been there? I just can't take it any more. No more can I take. It's been going on far too long. This stuff that's happening to me again and again and again, I can't take it any more. Have you ever been in that place? Yeah. Good. Sorry. Good. I'm glad you understand. Not good. I'm glad it happened to you. Have you ever done something for someone hundreds of times, and then that final time when they don't say thanks makes you snap? I do this every day. Parents, you'll understand. I do your washing. I do your cleaning. I clean your room. I give you breakfast. I give you dinner. I give you lunch to take to school with you. Never a thank you. And then that one time. That one time when they do the face at you. Or the ham. Ham's all we've got in the fridge today. You're having ham. Take the mould off it. No, I'm joking. But that's what we've got. Oh, chili? We had chili the other day. And finally, boom, it happens, doesn't it? Go to your room, yeah. And they're off. Maybe that just happens in my house.
I doubt that.
Elijah made some mistakes that are not uncommon to us. Okay? We run ourselves into the ground. Okay? Before, back to my story I shared with you about me. In the 18 months leading up to us coming here, just before, in December, at the beginning of December, I'd lost my funding, so I was unemployed for a time while I got training to do something. On Christmas Day at 6 o'clock in the morning, Tammy had a miscarriage and lost the baby. Still carried on at work. I got a job, taxiing 12, 14 hours a day or nights. We went through a lot of stuff. We left our family, our church in Lincoln to come and do something new that we didn't know anyone, didn't know the town. But it all happened within 18 months. We were travelling 45, 50 minutes every Sunday to be here for Sunday mornings, travelling back to Lincoln, travelling back to Boston in the evening. We were running ourselves into the ground. What happened is that Elijah had run himself out. He'd run himself into the ground. You see, the thing is, sometimes when you're working for God and everything's going so well, sometimes you start thinking you're invincible. But you're not. I go back to the beginning, we are flesh and bones. Yeah. We are spirit as well, but our bodies are flesh and bone. They get tired. They get broken. And you all know what I've been through since then, so that's cool, we don't have to go back into that. But Elijah burnt himself out. And when we're down, when we're burnt out, other things can happen to our bodies. Number 2, Elijah shut people out. Elijah went off on his own. He left his most loyal person behind. What did it say? In the end of verse 3 it says, "Then he was afraid and he arose and he ran for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there." He left his best friend. He left the most loyal person that he had behind to face it alone. This is the problem. He internalized the problem. Okay? I can carry this alone because no one understands this like me. I'm the one going through it. And so what happened, you shut people out because they won't understand what you're going through, because this is happening to you, not them. But we don't have to do it alone. Our mind says, this affects me. But what we don't realise is that when we internalise that, is that we affect other people around us. They start worrying. They start feeling anxious about you. Are you there? Are you listening?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Number 3. We focus on the negative. 1 Kings 19:4 says, "But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a broom tree. And he asked that he might die, saying, It is enough now. O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers." When we focus on the negative, it drives us further down the track of despair. When the negative is what we think on, it drives us further down that path. I'm no better than my fathers. Life isn't going to get any better. We start having a self-pity party where only one is invited. And who knows, parties on your own are never good. The crisps and the dips. The bring and share, having a bring and share with one person. Gets rather boring, doesn't it, after a while? I've shouted at the kids. I've got no money to buy them all that they want for Christmas or their birthday. I can't treat them this week because I've got no money. I'm a bad parent. No, you're not. No, you're not. You do the best with what you got. Goes on. Beating yourself up. Focusing on the negative. Week 3, we get to look at changing your perspective. Number 4. We forget God. God had been with Elijah every step of the way. Wherever Elijah went, God was with him. God has provided at all times. God has protected at all times. But Elijah forgets God in the midst of his anxiety. It's what happens. Because we've shut everyone out. We're focusing on the negative. And so no one can help us. Not even God. Because when has he ever been anxious? In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus, who is God, was anxious and sweated blood. So let me tell you today, God understands anxiousness. He understands anxiety. God understands. He doesn't judge you for it. He didn't judge me for it. He didn't judge Elijah for it. Let's have a look. What does Elijah mean? El, El, Elohim, God. I, mine, Jah, Yahweh. My God is Yahweh. Breathe. Or breath. Okay? My God is my breath. I want you to get this. When you are anxious, can't catch your breath, or you have a shortness of breath, my God is my breath. It's no good facing your fears and forgetting God. Look. When Elijah was falling apart, God doesn't rebuke him. Doesn't say, get yourself together. I've given you everything you need. Sort it out. Come on. That's me. Or he didn't ask him, where's your faith? What God does is meets him where his need is. God will always meet you in your need. 1 Kings 19, 11 to 12 says, and he said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. Because we're always looking for that loud thing, isn't it? The pointing finger. That's what Tammy said when she turned me down. She tried to dump me. I weren't having it. I'm resilient. I'm like, boo. I stick. And I said, what are you dumping for? She went, when we talked about it later, not at that point, she said, I was waiting for the big finger to go, it's him. She'd forgotten the list that she'd wrote and what she wanted in the guy, and I hit every one of the list. That's good, isn't it? Including the big hands. So she'd forgotten, stop it, she'd forgotten her list, right? She'd forgotten her list and actually was waiting for something else. The big pointy finger. Remember the old lottery thing? It's you. Or it's him. Where was I? But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, a sound of a low whisper. God wasn't in the wind, was he? And he wasn't in the earthquake. He wasn't in the fire. God wasn't in any of it. God wasn't in the remarkable. He was in the ordinary. God was in the whisper. Simon, come. Come up here. Stay there. Just go over there a minute. I'm going to come over to you. So when we're stressed, overcome by anxiety, why does God's voice seem so quiet? Why doesn't he speak to us in spectacular and powerful ways? You see, the enemy shouts lies. The enemy shouts his accusations because he's far off. You're no good. There's nothing right about you. He's having to shout the message. God's always close. Cheers, mate. God is close. The devil shouts lies. God whispers the truth. That still, small voice whispers the truth. Because he's so close to us. He holds us, he guides us, he takes us, he's in us. So God whispers the truth. He doesn't need to shout. Doesn't need that miraculous, that moment. Because he's got us. And he speaks into our ear and whispers how great you are, how awesome you are, how wonderful you are, how like his son you are growing, that his peace is here. I came through what I went through because God is near. He's near to me. What did Elijah fear? He feared death. I'm going to finish. Elijah feared death, but it never came. He was anxious for nothing. What he feared didn't come to pass. In fact, God took him off. God took him off. He didn't die. Chariots of fire, it says. Gone. And Elisha was left standing there with a double portion.
That's right.
But fear, that death, never came. What he feared the most never happened. Now, I've said this before. A lot of the things that we fear never happen. Never happen. But our mind says it's going to. And so we're anxious, so we have fear over it. We need to be able to cast it down. We need to be able to say no. No. It doesn't necessarily always mean that that's gone. But what it does is at that moment, and maybe you have to do it every day, to cast the fear down. Cast that anxiousness down. Cast that anxiety down. I know someone who does that. And they're a good man. There is nothing that God can't bring you through. Nothing. Nothing. There's no storm that he can't bring you through. There's no obstacle that he can't overcome. There is no enemy that he can't defeat. There is no heartache that he won't heal. can't heal. Let's just stand. It would be remiss of me, after speaking what I spoke, to not offer the chance for people to receive prayer. Because that's what I felt this morning, just as I was just doing my readings and that actually people need a chance to respond. So we're just going to open up. Christian, if you just come up, just guitar for a minute. I just want to open the front up for those who want prayer. And do you know what? It doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about position. It doesn't matter what you do. Okay? This is about being open to the things of God. And if you this morning are being held captive by anxiety, or captive by anxiousness about something, even if it seems small, it's making you anxious. So I just want to open the front. And if you need prayer this morning, please, just make a step. Just make a step, and I want to pray. I want to pray with you. There's going to be other people that will pray. But just take a step, please, this morning. Don't miss a moment to actually just connect with God. Just to say, you know what? Because you know what? The worst thing in the world, one of the things I don't like about Christians, including myself, is that because we're a Christian, we think we've got to have it all together. That we can't suffer from anything. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay to own it. Because you know what? Owning it is when healing comes. So this morning, anxiety, anxiousness, just take a step. There's more of you. Just take a step. You know, it's Sunday all day. We've got time. Okay, let's start to pray. You know what? While people are being prayed for, if you feel you need to come, just come. Don't feel, oh, I can't go now, the call's gone. People are being prayed for, people are coming back. Please come forward. Monica, would you come and pray with people? Janet, would you come and pray with people? Carolyn, come and pray. Simon, come and pray. Simon, come and pray. Oh, yeah, no. Pray. whisper truth into your life this morning. Let it whisper of the great things that He has done and that you are one of them. Bless your name.
Just never to Calvary, where Jesus bled and died for me. I see His wounds, His hands, His feet, my Savior on that cursed tree. They laid Him down in Joseph's tomb. The entrance shield by heavy stone, Messiah still and all alone. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore, forever. We will sing Your praise, oh Lord, oh Lord our at break of dawn, the Son of Heaven rose again. Oh, tremble death, when angels sing the anthem of love, oh, Christ the King. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore, forever. We will sing Your praise, oh Lord, oh Lord our God. He shall return in robes of white. The blazing sun shall pierce the night, and I will ride among the saints on Kingdom's gate on Jesus' name. Oh, praise the name of the Lord our God. Oh, praise His name forevermore. wind inside myself. Yeah, surrender waste. Oh, is my soul. The key of my heart. Feel the fire inside my veins. The echo of my day. Oh, is my song. You are good, good. Whoa, you are good, good. Whoa, you are good, good. Whoa, you are good, good. You're never gonna let me down. 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 You're never gonna let me down.
I've been adopted to God's family. And we gave them the certificate of adoption. And the Bible verse says, all praise to God the Father, the Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly realms, because we are united with Christ. He is a good God. And our kids, this is their inheritance. And you are the kids of the Lord Almighty. This is your inheritance. Every spiritual blessing. Now, it's tricky for the kids to listen in junior church. Sometimes it's tricky, isn't it? With lots is going on. And so some of them might miss it. Some of them might discard their piece of paper. How often do we discard our inheritance? Because He's given you everything, all your peace, all your joy, all your provision. There is no need to be anxious for anything. So when we come and we take our offering now, we don't need to be anxious for the money that we put in. We don't need to be anxious for His provision. We don't need to be anxious for anything, because He is our God and we are joint heirs. He has given us all things. So as His heirs, we have all things. So we can live in pure joy this morning as we continue to worship.
nothing can compare. Your presence, Lord. I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, when my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Yes, Lord, in your presence. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, that is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, your presence, I've tasted and seen on the sweetest of love, where my heart becomes free and my shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, that is what our heart longs for. To be overcome by your presence, your presence, let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Your presence, Lord. We see your presence, Lord. In your presence, Lord. Your glory.
say it from our bottom of our very soul that we love you. Lord, we thank you for just loving us and loving on us. Lord of all, thank you. Lord, we thank you for this offering. Lord, we praise you for it. Lord, it will go so far into working in this town, in this borough, and in Kenya, and in Romania. Lord of all, bless it, we pray, Lord. Make it 10 times the amount in what it does in the places where it needs to go. Jesus, God of all, praise your name. Amen. Awesome. Just take a seat for a minute, don't rush off, don't start having a conversation just yet. Let me do some announcements, and then we're fine. Then you can have a coffee or a tea or the other stuff as well. Okay, this week coming is Restore Group Week. A few of you, that's cool. Okay. So, I think we're going to have 2 Restore groups to come together this next Thursday. That's good. Go and see Tam at the end of that. That's cool, and ask her about that. On Saturday the 7th, I mentioned it last week, and I'll say it again, I'm going to keep saying it every week. Saturday the 7th, here. Tea and tea? Oh, tea and coffee. Tea. No, it's fine, you're fine. Tea, coffee, mince pies, free! Make and take away what you make for Christmas. It's going to be a craft day, it's going to be an awesome day. Awesome day. Saturday the 7th, put it in your diaries. Junior church team, please meet in the junior church room after the service. Grab a tea, coffee, whatever you need. But go and meet in there. There's some news and some other stuff that's coming up that you need to talk about. And the same for the kids. All the children, can you go to the creche rooms after the service with Maya as well, please? And youth. Youth and children and creche. All go to the creche room, have some fun. With Maya. Well done, Maya, you're brave. Okay. Christmas Day. No, sorry. Christmas parties, bring and share on Sunday the 22nd of December. We said this last week. Bring and share. Don't bring a plate for just you. That's right. Bring some food to share. It's going to be good. And please, don't bring, just bring what you would like to eat. Okay? Don't bring what you think other people. Bring what you would like to eat and share it. And that's really cool. So we get lots of different kinds of dishes. It's really good. Because I love all the dishes, although I can only fit a little bit inside me nowadays. Okay. Christmas Day. Oh, okay, yes, I remember what Christmas Day is. Christmas Day. Come on, mate. Good. Christmas Day. This is an idea that we're just putting out there. Let's see who wants to respond. On Christmas Day, after our service at 10 o'clock in the morning, not 10:30 or 11, at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll be here for an hour. That's it. Tops, including tea and coffee. Alright, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. Okay? Now, that's what's going on. It keeps coming off my ear. Okay, so on that day, we've said as a family, we'd like to come here, and maybe if you would like to come, that's fine. Maybe you haven't got, maybe on your own, maybe as a family you want to come as well, and we will bring sort of buffet style food. Maybe we'll have a couple of joints. People can bring different things, and we'll put a load of food out. There'll be games for the kids to play, and we'll just have a really nice afternoon. But please come and tell us so that we know what we're planning. Otherwise, we will go home and have our Christmas Day, which is cool. So whichever way it goes, but if you are interested, please just come and see us, because then we might say, could you make this for the day? Or could you make that, so that we don't all get packets of crisps? Okay, I like crisps, and turkey crisps are not good. Okay, on the day I want some meat. Okay, last thing, Kenya, Kisumu. All right, next year we have 3 times that we're going over to Kenya, okay, to our church in Kisumu, to Restore Church Kisumu. We are going on February the 25th. We fly out from Heathrow February the 25th and we leave Kenya on March the 5th. We'll arrive back in UK on the 6th, on the Friday morning. So that's a Tuesday, all the week, 10 days. And then we come back, sorry. Then we're also going on June the 9th to the 18th. And we're also going on October the 6th to the 15th. If that really floats your boat, right? That really makes your heart go, oh, I want to get involved there, I want to go. I want to see the work, I want to see the church. There also might be another church that we have to go and see as well, a couple of hours away in a place called Kissit, that want to come under our covering. And we'll also go to a place called Nakuru, get to come into prison with us. It's really great, it is real fun, okay? Come on the streets, come and do stuff working with prostitutes and street kids and prisoners that are coming and ex-prisoners that have just been released. If that really floats your boat, come and speak to me, okay? Because I need to then have a conversation with how much it'd be costing you, what you need to get ready to come, like a passport, always useful, okay? And what injections and tablets you need to get, but please, and the cost, okay? But please come and see me, and let's go out there and have a great time as well. And also there's a couple of days rest, and you get to spend time with me and Adrian, because we're really lovely. It's really cool. That's really good. That's the bonus point for you, alright? And you get to do mission, so that's really cool. So please come and speak to me. And if it's cost-wise as well, let's have a look at that if we need to help. Not saying we pay for all of it, but we might be able to help you get there, okay? Because I really want church to get on mission. Not just in our area, but wherever our church is. And we've got a church in Kisumu in Kenya. So please come and speak to me. Awesome. Tea and coffee. Have chats. Pray with someone. Bless someone. Be an awesome encourager to somebody. And come and speak to me if you want to come to Kisumu. Once I get, let me get a coffee first.